Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Customer News. I'm Rafer Weigel.
And I'm Mike Giambattista. Rafer, let's get right to the headlines.
The digital-first era is here to stay. NPS used to be the holy grail of measuring customer sentiment, but a Harvard business study showed that 8 in 10 executives surveyed say that digital adoption is the key to long-term success, and 92% say it is time to capitalize, and it's actually an opportunity. Mike, your take.
So NPS is the current favorite topic for just about everybody who operates in CX and almost universally despises it as a metric. Creating great customer experiences is a complex undertaking with an awful lot of variables. NPS by itself doesn't deliver the nuance, doesn't deliver the insight or the directional guidance that brands now require. Instead, why not look at customer expectation scores or customer and brand alignment scores? Much more directional and therefore much more helpful to those people who have to design those experiences.
A recent survey revealed that 83% of all companies changed their Martech platform in the past year, meaning that marketers need to embrace change or they're apparently going to get left behind. Mike, the question is when to do it, and based on this study, my guess is now.
There is no better time than the present. I heard a keynote the other day where the speaker said, in effect, the customer was already in the midst of a massive expectational change before the pandemic even happened. The pandemic not only accelerated that change, but forced companies to reckon with it. And that's why we're seeing statistics like this 83% charging toward technology changes.
Well, there's been a crazy shift, if you will, towards loyalty programs for fast food restaurants and chains as they battle for our business. Newsweek published a ranking of foodie favorite programs, in the winner, well, some of you maybe have never heard of it, El Pollo Loco. Mike, I remember El Pollo Loco when I lived out in LA. What are they doing right?
Well, Rafer, this is actually pretty significant. The big loyalty program winner is also, and it happens to be, maybe not coincidentally, one of the simplest loyalty programs on the market. There are dozens and dozens of levers that loyalty marketers can pull to try and create deeper and better engagement. But each one of those adds some level of complexity, which in turn adds some level of friction to the customer really understanding what they've got and what they're a part of. And now it turns out that simplicity, which equates to ease of understanding.
Today's roundtable discussion delves deeper into the concept of customer loyalty. Joining us again, usual suspects Carl Doty and Dave Franklin from Atlas, and joining us for the first time, Henry Hartefeld, president of Atmosphere Research Group. Henry, thanks for joining us. Carl and Dave, also thanks for joining us. Henry, what are the changes that COVID has caused in the travel industry? And, are you seeing that some of those changes will be the new normal?
Yeah, Rafer, well, thanks to you all for inviting me to be part of today's discussion. Look, the travel industry is one of the most hard hit by the COVID pandemic. Last year, at one point, air travel was down 96% worldwide. We have seen airlines pushed to the brink of bankruptcy in some countries, even shut down in some places. The US airlines have gone 3 times to the government to get support, financial support to keep operating. What we have seen here is an evaporation of business travelers because companies have locked down all of their travel. You can't go anywhere in the interest of safety. So the industry recast itself to serve leisure travelers. And that means serving a very, very different type of customer base because it's traditionally been the business traveler who's been the financial backbone for airlines, for hotels, for rental car companies, and many other parts of the travel industry. And there's no business travel happening, or almost none.
Right.
And so as a result, the loyalty programs have had to adapt to appeal to a leisure customer. And the challenge is that's not who they're designed for. Their very term is called frequent flyer, frequent traveler, frequent guest programs. And the person who travels 2 or 3 times a year for personal trips, which is the typical number of trips someone takes under normal circumstances, they don't engage with these programs.
We all can see, and we've all been participants in the fact that the travel industry basically was decimated. But so travelers went away. Did their loyalty to those airlines and hotel brands go away with it? And I guess really what I'm asking is, under some circumstances that we're not aware of just yet, let's say the industry came back on some level, does the industry expect those loyal customers, those loyalty program members to return as well? Or did whatever brand loyalty exists before just evaporate along with the industry? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've actually managed these loyalty programs in the past at different airlines and hotels. Loyalty has been under siege in the travel industry because as choices have grown, as travelers' ability to shop for travel have expanded, and frankly, as differentiation has decreased in a lot of many parts of the industry, travelers have basically become less loyal. When I joined Forrester back in 2000, and we did our first consumer survey of travelers, more than 40% of the people we surveyed in the US said that they were loyal to at least one airline, at least one hotel, and so on. The research that we just did in the first quarter of this year has 17% of passengers, airline passengers, saying that they're loyal to at least one airline or airline alliance.
Wow.
And by the way, we've seen the decline in other countries, in the UK, in Japan, in Germany, in Australia, in China, and elsewhere. It varies, but airlines have done a great job of destroying loyalty.
Do you think that's a function of the complexity of program mechanics, or what the reward systems might be, and how to actually incentivize people? Or has it just been a function of crappy customer service, or a combination thereof?
Mike, it's all that and more. And when you think about it now, we've got 4 airlines in the US that collectively control more than 80% of the market: American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines, and United. So they're what I call the core 4. The fact that loyalty has decreased, even though these airlines are now many times larger than they were 20 years ago, let alone even longer when I first started in this business. And I think that's one reason why loyalty has gone away, because the airlines just don't try, or at least the largest ones don't try very hard. They don't have to. At least that's their mindset. And they have shifted their focus on loyalty towards getting us to take the co-branded credit cards. And that is really, for them, the measure of what loyalty is. And hotels have followed suit. But in hotels' case, we have a choice of many great brands and great experiences. But admit it, every hotel room looks alike. You walk in and there is a nice bed with a white duvet and 87 pillows on it. And you walk in and you think you're on the set of some HGTV renovation program because it's painted in the latest colors, but everyone's using the same color palette.
Yeah, interesting.
So you also think about the fact that, Mike, to your very, very important point, if you're not treated well, if you're not recognized, and now with the shift, especially on the airline side, towards revenue-based recognition, you become more keenly aware of what your value is to the airline. And so if you're spending $8,000 a year flying, or $12,000 a year flying, you're much more aware of that than maybe when you're flying, let's say 75,000 miles or 150,000 miles or whatever it may be.
Interesting.
Yeah, Henry, where do you draw the distinction between loyalty and being a member of a loyal program? Right, so I'm a member of all of the above that you mentioned, plus others from a loyalty program point of view. I don't feel loyal to any of them. I do contort my behavior to maximize my reward from some or more than one. But oddly enough, the airline and the hotel chain that I have the highest level of status with, and therefore that would consider me to be the most loyal, and to your earlier point, I have a branded credit card from both of those. At least in the case of the airline, it's more of a feeling of animosity or venom, or insert your extreme negative adjective of choice. And yet they probably have me in an extremely loyal category because, again, I contort my behavior to fly them in order to maximize my reward.
Don't we
Right.
call that Stockholm syndrome, Dave? sorry, Henry. I didn't mean to cut
Oh,
you.
no, not at all. So, Dave, I actually worked on the very first co-branded airline credit card. We launched it at Continental Airlines back in the late 1980s. And at the time we were kind of the Keystone Cops of airlines. And so we bungled it. American Airlines did a much better job and Continental had to retrench and we redid it. But I will tell you that your comment about contorting yourself to the airline is something that I've seen firsthand, and I saw it also in the hotel side. So my definition, that this is what I used at a couple of different airlines, was someone who would fly us from A to B, where we didn't offer a nonstop, so they had to transit through one of our hubs, where there was a nonstop competitor, and where we were not always even the least expensive airline option. And at the hotel, it was people who would stay with me and pay almost any price, even if our hotel or hotels were not the most conveniently located. So, those are measures of loyalty. And when you think about it, when we talk about loyalty, it's emotion, right? We are loyal to our family, to our friends, to our countries, and so on. We, Dave, your description of how you feel about the airline and hotel is typical. It's like a bad marriage where you could get divorced, but it would be too painful, and then you'd have to go through the pain of trying to date and find somebody else, and you're not sure that there's anyone else better out there. So you'll stick with the one and cheat.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think COVID has brought that to mind for me, and has broken that chain. I have money that is currently trapped. They won't return it. Once that money either expires or I get to use it. If it does expire, as they're claiming it will, I've already determined I'm going to switch. And if it means starting at the bottom, they've all extended the status for an extra year. So hopefully you'll be able to parlay that into a transfer to a new, but I'm done. And it's a couple of things. Part of it is that trapped money. Part of it is the way that they dealt with the beginning of the pandemic. I had multiple flights coming up and I just felt like they handled it extremely poorly. And then there's other things that are more health related. And I'm curious longer term to see how that's going to evolve, but the whole middle seat issue and all those sorts of things. And I think longer term, it's not going to matter, but the companies that behaved in certain ways during this time, I'm wondering how it'll play out. And I don't know that any of us can know that yet, but curious your thoughts.
Well, I have to wonder if these loyalty programs are ever going to recover to pre-pandemic status. What I mean is, to use your term, Dave, the fact that we used to contort our behavior to take advantage of the points or the money that they might be holding hostage to us. Is anybody really going to travel as much as they used to? Is anybody, the Million Miler Club and all this, is that ever really going to recover to where it was? I question whether it's possible now.
Look, the research we do research with corporate travel managers. These are the people who manage and control the budgets for mid-sized and large corporations, including multinational and global organizations. Right now, 10% of the travel managers that participated in our March survey, which is the latest available, said that they don't believe their companies will ever return to pre-COVID levels of travel and spend. But 27%, are uncertain of what their companies will do. So you've got 37% saying either we're not going back or we don't know what's going to happen. Now, technology is one of the largest sectors of one of the largest customer segments for the travel industry. And what's interesting is when I talk to the travel managers at these companies, they're actually rather bullish about what they're going to be doing with business travel. There will be less business travel, Carl. We will be making far more use of video conferencing and remote learning. But, again, I think business travel that is associated with bringing in revenue, keeping revenue, generating revenue, et cetera, that will probably be protected. But internal staff travel that's not necessarily billable back to a client or associated with something outside of an emergency, that's going to shrink. So that means also, by the way, that airlines, hotels, and other travel suppliers are going to have to recast how these programs are developed and optimized. Here's something really interesting. Before COVID, we did some surveys, research, and it was really complex with people who were members of different airline loyalty programs, including the unpublished, super secret, not so secret top tiers for the big three airlines: American, Concierge Key, Delta, 360, and United Global Services. Now, I won't tell you which airline, but one of them in their home market, most important hub, 74% of their top tier, most financially valuable customers said that they would consider another airline if it offered comparable flights and fares.
Wow.
3 in 4 would walk from that airline. And these are the people that the airlines contort themselves for.
That actually doesn't surprise me. Having been concierge key on American, it was. I think if you're flying that much, if you're doing 100,000 miles, spending $100,000, whatever it is, what's important to you starts to evolve too. Where I think when you're somewhere between gold and platinum or whatever those precious metals are, depending on the airline, the difference is huge. When you're considered that important to an airline and someone else is willing to treat you as well, you really don't care. But also, if I can fly direct, if I can get there at the time I want to be there, and I can't do that on my quote unquote home airline, I'll switch happily, because it's sort of, what am I running for at this point? I've achieved it, done.
Right.
They treat you a little bit better, but you start to not judge some of that stuff as much as you used to.
Dave, you also mentioned something, which was you had a problem with an airline getting a refund. And you're not alone. Almost 1 in 5 airline passengers had that happen to them during COVID. And more than 2 in 3 said that will affect their future airline loyalty going forward post-COVID. In some cases, our loyalty is really forced on us. If you work for a corporation that says, hey, you have a choice of airlines A or B, and if you don't fly them, you may not be reimbursed. And you have a choice of hotels C, D, and E, and if you don't stay there, you may not be reimbursed, and so on. That's not loyalty. That's enforced behavior and avoidance of personal bankruptcy to do business with the brands you would potentially prefer over your company authorized options. So, the challenge with this industry, and I have seen this literally happen in front of my eyes, loyalty is so difficult to earn, and it is so easy to lose. And, the airlines and hotels have not invested enough in their customer data. When we ask airlines and hotels to grade the quality of their customer data on a 0 through 10 scale, it comes out at 5.9. They never invest to the same degree in terms of IT overall as other industries do. Even in good years, they're still a point or two or more below all industry averages. They don't measure the right metrics. Dave, to your point, are they looking at anything that would send a signal up that you are about to defect? The fact that you were concierge key, and this is where trumpets should sound, at American Airlines, and then you weren't, American should have followed up with you to find out why. Was it something that they did? Was it a change in your behavior? Or was it just a natural evolution? Hey, American, you know what? I just flew less, but you still got, almost all of my butt in seat miles and almost all of the money that I spent or my employer spent on my behalf for my air travel. Same with the hotel, same with the car rental company, whatever else. Again, you got to look. This is one of the things that I talk with and sometimes yell at with travel industry loyalty people. And that is, you've got to look beyond just the numbers. And this is where machine learning, and RPAs and some other emerging types of analytical software, data scientists, all of that can be very helpful in understanding something that perhaps we can't see on a spreadsheet, but the nuggets are there.
You're talking about creating a dialogue, Henry. I mean,
Yes.
that's what I mean. That's really what you're describing. We talked about a study not too long ago, Mike and I, about how hotels that just do those simple customer surveys get more repeat business because the customers just feel like they're being heard. And it sounds like that's something that the airline industry needs to do more of. They're certainly not listening to Dave Franklin. Well, a lot of us don't listen to Dave Franklin, but we're not taking his money, so we don't have to. But as far as the airline, they need to be listening to him. This guy's going to be a good customer for them. So yeah, do they need to do more of that?
Yes, and here's the difference. There are schools of hospitality at Cornell and elsewhere around the world that teach people how to be good hotel professionals. And Rafer, to your point about these customer satisfaction surveys, they get read and they get acted on most of the times. Certainly at 3-star and above hotels, they're taken very seriously. Management is graded on them. There could be bonuses tied to them at the property level and at the brand level. Business decisions hinge on it. If you own the hotel, and it's important to understand that more than 9 in 10 branded hotels are actually owned by a third party. They're not owned by the brand whose name is on the door. If the owner sees that customer satisfaction isn't good and things don't improve, they look at changing out the management at that hotel, and then they look at changing the brand affiliation when the contract is up. So there's big bucks and many jobs that hinge on it. On the airline side and the car rental side, they're too operationally focused. They don't care because they don't have to.
We talk a lot at Atlas about, what's the right metric or what are the right measurements that brands across industries should be looking at. And we've had lots of discussions about NPS and traditional CSAT and everything. But I think one thing that's coming through loud and clear in this conversation, the travel industry at large needs to reevaluate that entire process, reevaluate what a loyal customer post-pandemic is going to look like, and how do we monitor and measure the effectiveness of our programs now, because clearly the rules have changed.
So absolutely, Carl. They have. The other thing is you've got to really figure out, if you're a large brand, who do you want your customers really to be? Who do you want engaged in your loyalty program? Do you want everybody with a pulse in there? Or should your loyalty program by design be smaller, but better? And then, don't overpromise and underdeliver. How many times have you read, you get a space available upgrade to the best category room or whatever at a hotel if you're elite, or complimentary domestic upgrades when they're available. And guess what? Those hotels and airlines and others are going out and selling those upgrades underneath you so that they can generate revenue because they don't want to give it away.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So the next version of this conversation will be how to achieve the next phase of travel, hospitality, loyalty. And there's an awful lot to unpack there. But for now, I want to thank Henry, Carl, Dave, and Rafer for participating in this conversation. It is robust, it's fun, and I'm very much looking forward to the next version of it.
And I also want to clarify that anybody watching for the first time, I absolutely listen to Dave Franklin. He's one of the brightest men I know. That's why we keep having him back. We
You're
go
the
back
one.
6 episodes, so we have that familiarity. Thanks a lot, guys.